Frey, and I don't know how
I'm
to
Maria.
podcast.
I'm Peachy.
I'm Toby.
And we're Dude I Know Stuff. So today's episode, we're talking about Women's History Month, feminism, COVID-19's 1-year anniversary, checking in on those things. It's a full special episode. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started with Women's History Month. Tomorrow is International Women's Day. I'm super excited, not that I'm doing much, but the vibes of the day are good.
So I'm celebrating by working. To be honest, we have this episode on the schedule, and I was like, I wonder when that is this month.
I literally planned it so it was like lining up to International Women's Day was the goal. So we could be like, look at us, strong women, killing the game.
Yeah, I usually wait until the hashtags go out on like whatever social media to like figure out these sorts of holidays, which is probably bad. I think this is the first time I knew it was International Women's Day before the day itself came about.
I'm part of this women's group at work, and like International Women's Day is a really big day, and then Women's History Month is a really big month, like for our group, because we have we have an award thing that we like recognize like really strong women in the agency. So that's the only reason why I know what's going on, and then we get the PR packs for it, so I always know the hashtag early. This year it's Choose to Challenge, which I kind of liked.
It's what?
Choose to Challenge.
Okay, I didn't actually hear you, but I also don't know what that is.
I think it's like you're choosing to challenge the norms of like what society has already set, is like what I gathered from it. So like you're choosing to challenge these things and not just like roll with it.
Oh, you said choose to challenge. I heard shoes. I was like, what does shoes have to do with anything?
No, it's just me
That
mumbling.
feels so sexist if it had to do with shoes.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was seriously like, what does shoes have to do with women's, like, International Women's Day?
Nothing. Choose.
Oh my
CHOOSE.
That has the same vibes
right.
as our sororities stuff. Or I think any sorority, they always kind of do the like...
Really short, snappy
short,
headline.
snappy, motivational stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that. They're easy to remember. So, and they usually have some kind of like hand symbol with them. God, I can't remember, or it was 2 years ago. I don't remember anything from last year, but there was a pandemic, so I don't think anyone was really paying attention. But the year before that, they had like, these were the hand signs. So it was like an equality thing.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, because I posted it on Instagram, but I don't know what this year's is. I don't know that there's like a throw it you know that goes with it.
A throw it you know.
I haven't heard that term in a long, long time.
That's because I don't think they do it anymore. Like, I don't think that's like a popular thing for sororities to do. Like, we used to do that shit in every single picture.
But I feel like I'm so out of touch with like what girls in college, like in sororities, are doing nowadays that I wouldn't even know if that's like a thing anymore.
I feel like they're not really doing anything right now because none of them are really seeing each other in person.
It's true.
So
that's very accurate.
My work does a lot of like women's International Women's Day stuff, and then Women's History Month too, because Women's History Month is in August, isn't it?
Women's History Month is this month.
Oh. What was in August? We did something at my work for... No, I know tomorrow's International Women's Day, but we did something in August for women's something.
No. Women's History Month is March.
Oh, now I remember. You know what it was? In August of 2020, it was the 100th year anniversary of the women's like right to vote.
Suffrage movement.
That's why.
Yes.
That's why we did something. Now I remember.
In August, I found this podcast called She Votes, and I really like the way they had this podcast set up. It's kind of like a documentary, but very engaging to listen to, and it's like about Susan B. Anthony, but then everyone else who like made that happen too, and it's really good.
Did you guys learn about the suffrage movement and everything like that in school? Because I have zero recollection of even learning anything related to it.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I did a little, but I learned like a very whitewashed account of it. And so when I was in college, I actually learned a lot more about how women's fight for equality in the US has always been very like white women centric. And I didn't realize that like there are all these facts about Susan B. Anthony that are definitely just
not
like
good.
not good to put it. But even then when I was in school, I learned like it was such a snippet of what happened, and just like women's movement as a whole. I didn't like, outside of voting, that's really all I learned. Like I didn't learn about like women's health or like the creation of birth control or like all these other things. It's really just women's history was kind of summed up in like, they did some protests and then they got to vote. Woo! And that was that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all I got too. I didn't actually learn anything until after I graduated from college. I wouldn't say I learned anything in college either.
Yeah.
When I took AP US History, shout out A Push, we had a pretty hefty section of like women's history. We had to read a book called Women in History. It's not really that big, but it was pretty detailed on just like the gradual movement of women like gaining more rights, and how like talked a lot about how men leaving for war was very helpful in women getting rights because they had to let them do things. And I mean, honestly, I don't remember as much from that book as I probably should. A lot of what did end up sticking with me was when they talked about immigration and how the women in the family, like how that impacted them, because it would talk about the relationships between mothers and daughters. So like parents who immigrated to the US and how the relationship was strained with their children who were growing, like with their daughters who were growing up American and stuff like that. And that really resonated with me because I was like, this is my story. Like, this is exactly how me and my mother are, because it essentially says they don't get along well because they're living in two completely different cultures. And so, like, I remember one of the least important snippets from that book, but it's just, like, something that, like, I, like, personally could relate to. So that's why it was so memorable for me. But, yeah, I just don't feel like the women's stories are that well taught or that well remembered, because all the big major man events, everyone remembers those because you learn them so much. Whereas I can remember one unit, one time, where there was like an in-depth like section on just women's history.
I didn't really think about the aspect of women and the immigration story of the US either, because I feel that's such an integral part of U.S. culture and the like creation story of the United States. But there's a lot of change in that kind of family structure, and a lot of women who immigrate are such a driving force in the U.S., like either in the marketplace or like workforce and so on, that doesn't really get taught about or even talked about that often. Yeah, that was just something I didn't consider either. But I did read a book when I was in college that talked a lot about Hmong women and in the US, and how they too, it's very similar to what Toby was saying, of there's just this huge disconnect of Hmong women and their children, especially because they end up having to be a huge income contributor to the family, or like basically bring the bread home. And so it's like they're the primary worker in their family as well, which, like, when you think about the history of women in the US, it's very much like the housewife, domestic work, things like that. But really that's only applicable to like a certain socioeconomic and racial category. And the story is like so much wider and broader and like more complex than that. But like you just don't get told these stories.
I read somewhere, it was some study that actually women in the US hold the most buying power because they're typically like the CFO of their family.
Mm-hmm.
They're just kind of like handling like the bills, all of that, and like really driving what their family can afford, which I thought was really interesting.
I just thought about something that goes along with what you were just saying. I saw this TikTok like yesterday, and then I saw another one that was commenting on it today, where this girl was like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but women, your husband's money is not your money just because you had his children. And like, I think she thought she did something there. She ended up deleting her account.
Oh shit.
Well, going off of that, I found out too, like, apparently women, or like cars are usually marketed to women because it's women that have the buying power in cars, because they're usually picking the car for their family that they're gonna like cart the kids around in and things like that. I had no idea, because cars are seen as such a like a dude thing, when in reality, majority of the people buying cars are actually women.
So accurate that a majority of people buying cars are women. From an advertising standpoint, the marketing towards women is not good. You probably wouldn't be surprised at how often that mark is missed, because it's typically a bunch of dudes sitting around a table going, yeah, that's what women care about. And then you like incorporate a woman and she's like, I don't give a fuck about that. And it's
show me a car with 7 kids and 30 like soccer bags in it, and I'm good. I'm gonna buy that shit.
Yeah.
Show me a vehicle where you can easily get a car seat in and out of, because that's always a nightmare. My friends who like had kids are babysitting, they're like, the worst thing is trying to put a car seat in and out. I want a vehicle that makes that easy, and it never is, because typically men are not carting around their kids, which I think that's getting better. I think that that's a task that more men are involved in now, is like child rearing and like taking care of their families, because traditionally it was like only the woman's job. And we see how that has negatively impacted a lot of society too.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially even for like men and their relationship with their fathers, and like women too, but I feel like I'm very appreciative just for like the well-being of a communal group of men and their like ability to have relationships with a male figure in life and that kind of involvement, because there's definitely studies that show that like an absent father can be very destructive to the son's like upbringing and confidence and things like that. And so
I mean, I think it affects,
get him home.
Well, and the 40-hour work week is bullshit too. For as much time as you spend away from your kids. But I see that Gosh Tech Santa put a comment in the chat that said, how about a car that doesn't need to have a car seat installed? But then that car also needs to grow with your family at the same time. But it's an interesting thought, for sure.
Yeah, I was actually looking at that too, and I was just like wondering like how exactly that would work, because I get that like you could design a seat that's safe for children, because he also said that after that last comment, but like it's not necessarily always going to be children in the back seat. Like, I don't really know how the designing of cars works. I don't know if this is something that is feasible to do, but how could you like make it so that it's safe for different age groups? So like, I'm just not entirely sure like how that would work. But like, I do think it's like a good idea, but I just don't I don't know.
Even though Low Life is not here for the videos, here to help moderate, but said, I don't know about you guys, but my mother drilled into my head to never be dependent on a man. I have a very conflicted relationship with that statement and like thought process, because I grew up with a single, like my mom never got married, was always raising me on her own independently. So I definitely grew up with this thought of like, I don't need no man. Fuck that. But as I get older, you know, and I'm engaged and have another person in my life that I definitely rely on, I don't want to say dependent, because that's kind of like if they're gone or like something happens, I'll like die in the streets or something like that. But like, I think that I've become a lot more comfortable and okay with putting a lot more on it, just another person in my life in general. Like if I were in a relationship with somebody who was not a cis man, I think I would still feel comfortable with that because it affords so much more emotional, like it gives me a lot more room emotionally to explore other things instead of stressing out about like my own ability to care for only myself. Like having a partner in my life, just it, like there's a reason people get married and humans couple up, and it's like survival wise, it just opens you up individually to like do all these other things and have a lot more relaxation.
I grew up the exact same way, like single mom, never married. I like had the same upbringing. Like we always talk about how like crazy our moms are about their only children.
Yeah.
But and like I grew up with the same mentality, and my mom did raise me on her own and she did an awesome job. But let's be real, it would have been a lot easier with some help. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think I wouldn't like I live with my partner as well, but I wouldn't call myself dependent, but it does make things a lot easier. Like I can live without him, pay my bills, do what I got to do without him, but I really would prefer not to.
So growing up, my parents were together growing up, but my mom still gave me the same advice. It was like never depend on a man for anything. And I think that was rooted more in have the ability and the confidence and the mindset to be able to survive on your own. Like kind of like Cher, men are like dessert. They're nice to have, but I am a rich man mom kind of thing. So, and like looking at it now, when I moved out, like I couldn't have moved out unless I had my now husband. So, but we're really, really open about all of our communication. Like, I feel like it wasn't as normal for like our parents' generation to like talk about money as often. Like, we're really, really transparent about what we're spending our money on together, and then what we're spending on like so we have one joint account, but then we have our separate bank accounts, but like we're very transparent about where all of our money is going. And I think that that's mitigated a lot of those feelings of dependency, because I'm like, well, you depend on me just as much as I depend on you. And I don't think that our parents' generation had that, because they were like, well, you shouldn't talk about like the 5 B's: boys, booze, Bush, Bibles, bank accounts. I had to think about that.
Sorry, yeah. What?
Bush, like George Bush or Barack?
5 B's.
The 5 B's. You don't remember that
Politics.
From recruitment? You couldn't talk about Barack, politics.
Oh my gosh.
Booze, alcohol,
literally,
bank accounts.
The Bush part was the thing that confused me.
Like,
You're old enough to remember him.
Yeah, well,
yeah, but I heard Bush and I was like, why are we talking about hairy vaginas? Like, I was very confused.
Bush lattes, not hairy vaginas.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, Z-Sweetie said Bush. No, like George Bush, George W. Bush, the politician. Just to make sure that's
okay,
very clear.
Can we also backtrack, because there's a comment by your girl Marceline, I think, that I wanted to acknowledge, because this pissed me off and it reminded me of something that just happened to me. So she said,
oh my God, I'm reading it too, and that pisses me off.
Also, speaking of cars, I recently went to lease one, and I work for a global automotive company, and the salesman said to me, maybe call your dad to help you pick one out. I ended up knowing more about the car than him. There's 2 separate reasons why this pisses me off. One,
this one's gonna hit home for you.
The assumption that girls don't know anything about cars. I am one of those girls that doesn't know very much about cars, but that's not the case for everyone. But also, I'm calling Nissan out right now, because I had to go. I had to get an oil change, and I had to get like 2 of my lights replaced, and then they sent me quotes for a bunch of other stuff that they're like, your car is fucked. And my quote was $2,000. I was like, what the hell? I'm not fixing any of this. So I called my friend's boyfriend, who like, he works on his own cars and he fixes like large machinery. So I was like, I need you to look at this quote and tell me if they're ripping me off. He calls me back like an hour later, cracking up. He's like, don't do any of that. He's like, I thought that people were joking when they said that like mechanics will rip off women because they don't know this stuff, but they are ripping you off. He's like, the things that they are trying to make you pay hundreds of dollars for, he looked up the cost of the parts and he's like, the parts are like $67 and I got quoted $800. It's like, there's no way that labor is going to take enough time for it to be $700 in labor. He's like, you're being ripped off. Don't do this. He's like, you're better off just driving to my house and I'll fix it for you. And so that was another reason that it pissed me, that comment pissed me off. But also, look, in the part where it says maybe call your dad to help pick one out, let's just like stop making the assumption that people can call their mom or their dad for all of these things. I mean, I could call my dad, but he's nonverbal. So good luck getting any information out of him. Like, I just don't like making the assumption that everyone is living in a like wholesome 2-parent household. You don't know. And that dude's a dick.
A flaming dick. Honestly, I hate going to the dealership for that reason. I need an oil change and I'm just kind of waiting until my husband gets so sick and tired of me procrastinating that he does it. Because I don't want to go because they always do that to me too.
Yeah. And
for the most part, I'm pretty decent at holding my own. I'm pretty good at the whole, like, in my head going, I can't afford that. I don't need it. But I don't say that out loud. But, like, it's so infuriating. And then I feel like a piece of me every time I walk into a showroom. Like, I just bought a new to me car. It was a used Jeep. But I got to the dealership before my husband did. And this man, the salesman, strictly made eye contact with my boobs the entire time.
No.
And I was like, eyeballs, right here,
Same
not down here. I don't even have boobs. I have no boobs. I have nothing to show off. Why are you staring at them? There's nothing there. They're flat. I have no boobs, no butt. We've established this. I look like Plank from Ed, Edd n Eddy. Stop staring at them. It's so annoying.
Going off of
About
this,
body positivity again. Jesus Christ.
I didn't say it was a negative thing. I like it for the most part. You know, I can wear cute bras, no bras. I'm good.
My mom, one time, I was staying with her for the summer, like in between school years, in college, and I was dropping her off at work, and this lovely woman gave me a car with no gas in it. So on the drive back, I lost gas, ran out of gas, and I just ended up on the side of the road. So I called her and she came through. At the time though, I didn't realize it was the gas because this car was all fucked up and the meters on it were never correct. So she was like guessing all the time of how things were. The car is gone now. But anyways, so she has one of her coworkers come and like bring her to me because we were like, maybe it's the battery or something. And we're working on it. Background, my mom's a mechanical engineer, like a lead mechanical engineer. The woman understands cars for the most part. Okay, she can't fix every individual car, but she gets the functioning of a car.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there looking at it, like figuring out what's going on, and this man, of course, comes up and pulls over. And like, this is just advice to anybody who is male presenting. Do not approach a woman on the side of the road with her car broken down. You may think you're being helpful, but my first thought is, fuck, I'm gonna die today.
That is always my first thought, too. I'm like, don't talk to me. Yeah, don't come up to me. I don't want to know.
I'd rather be stranded on the side of the road for the rest of the day than put my life into my hands because who knows what you're gonna do. And so, so he pulls over and he's talking to her and he starts kind of doing the like, well, this is a car and this is how it works. And, you know, and my mom was like,
ew.
I actually work up the road. I'm a mechanical engineer there. Like, I know we're good. We're good. You can leave now. And I was just like, oh, she must deal with this shit so much. I just can't even imagine. If I have to deal with it, I know nothing about. I mean, I know a decent amount. I'm not going to cut myself short. I've fixed some things on cars because I drove a really shitty car for a little while. So I know a decent amount at this point. But even then, I was just like, just leave me alone. Like, I don't want your help. Leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of like the opposite of your story, but again, another TikTok. But basically, this girl was just like, I'm going to give you a tip on how to change your headlights or your taillights without having to pay a whole bunch of money for it. So she's like, first go to an auto shop and then look up, what your car make and model is and which light you need to purchase, and then purchase that. After that, open the hood of your car and stand there looking confused. After a few minutes, a man should arrive and ask you if you need some help.
It's so
and
true,
that,
though.
ladies, is how you get things fixed for free. Ask not what you can do for misogyny, but what misogyny can do for you.
Okay, but that's so accurate because I used to go to the AutoZone by my house and I would do the same shit and just wait for the AutoZone dude to come outside and do it. I'd be like, I don't really know how to change this. And he'd be like, oh, don't worry, I'll help you. And I was like, it's because you think I'm
Yep.
cute.
Works for batteries too, because I went and bought a battery because my friend's boyfriend was gonna change the battery for me, and the dude at AutoZone was like, do you want me to come out there and change it for you? I was like, no, I don't even have my car here. Like, but thanks.
Oh, Hokey Boy said that's like AutoZone's policy. So no one thinks we're cute. They just have to do it.
He said
That's
if you buy the battery, they change it for you. I didn't know that they would, that's their policy.
Well, now we know.
The more you know.
It's not because they think we're cute. It's because they have to.
Yep.
Honestly, though, I didn't even think it was ever because they think you're cute. I honestly just think because they just don't think you can do it.
Probably.
Which, in my case, is completely correct. But, like...
Yeah, but I can do a bunch of other shit. Like, I might not be able to change my car battery, but I've seen my husband struggle with things that are so easy. No offense, Matt. I love you. Big bunches. But I've seen you do laundry. Yikes. I hope he's not listening anymore.
I dated
I really
somebody
hope he's driving.
He was in college and still took his laundry home to have his mom do it.
Oh, well, I used to do that out of sheer laziness. I would just
Right.
procrastinate and bring all my shit home, and my mom would be like, I'll do it for you, honey. And I was like, Mom, you're the best. Just because I didn't feel like walking up and down the stairs and using all my quarters.
Wait, so it's better to drive it home than to just walk it down the stairs?
Oh, fuck yeah.
That
for
seems
sure.
like it takes more effort to do that.
No, because then it gets folded and put back in the basket, and then it just gets stuck in my car, and then I'd come back and just put it away.
You? Never in my
my
life
mom's a
has my mom
legend.
folded my clothes.
No.
My mom stopped doing my laundry when I was 12.
Yeah.
Same.
When we bought the
you
house,
have to figure it out.
when we bought our house, it didn't come with a washer and dryer, so like we had to go buy one. And my mom was like, you guys can just drop off your laundry and I'll do it here while you're at work. And I was like, Mom, you're a legend and I love you. But that's just like my mom's mojo. Okay, we got really far away from Women's History Month.
Oh,
Well,
boy.
not really. We were talking about the gender gaps in 2021, specifically around auto. Where else do you guys
Specifically around
see those?
auto.
Yeah, so I mean, we're technically on topic, but is there anywhere else that you see major gender gaps?
I saw, not major, but I had an experience happen to me last year. It was, I think, around maybe beginning of summer, like at my own work, that we were hiring someone for the same like position that I'm in on our team. And a friend of mine actually applied to the job and ended up getting offered the position, and he's a guy. And obviously, like, being close to him, we're just like talking about it, and he told me how much he got offered for the position, and it was like, it wasn't crazy above I think it was like maybe 5K above what I make, but I was like, it like stung. I was like, well, shoot, like we have the same experience. Like he hasn't been working more than I have. We graduated at the same time, work in the same industry type of thing. There's not really that much of a difference between his resume and my resume. And he got offered a job at my company making more than I am making currently. So that was like kind of a reality shock, because I like feel like you always hear about stuff like that, like, oh yeah, men make more than women, but I've never been like privy to that in my personal life, or just so close to it. And I thought like, oh, that like I can stand up for myself, like that will never happen to me, blah blah blah. And then it did, and I was like, wow, this like sucks, this hurts. So I had to have like a hard conversation with my boss, being like, hey, like I know what you guys are offering this person for the same, like on our team, the same position that I'm in right now. I don't think it's fair. And she like was totally understanding about it. She's like, I'm gonna work to have you get not promoted, but just get a salary increase to match what that guy's salary was going to be. He ended up not even taking the job. So it's like, in the end, it didn't work out that way for him, but it got me, like, it gave me the confidence to be able to stand up for myself and talk to my boss and be like, hey, I don't think this is fair. And like practice making a case for myself whenever I am in that situation in the future. But it ended up working out for me, and I got promoted and got that salary increase. But it was kind of like a slap in the face moment when it was happening.
I know this couple that they worked at the same place doing the same job, and he made 20 grand more than her. And so then when she approached their boss and was like, what? I know he makes 20 grand more than me. He was like, no, he basically gaslit her. And she was like, I'm married to him. You think I don't know how much money he makes?
Yeah.
I'm like the most committed to this man that I can be, and you think I don't know that? And so she ended up leaving because she was like, this is bullshit. And I was like, good for you. That is bullshit. And because I didn't really think that it would be as prevalent in my life until I heard about that. And I was like, I work with these people. That is probably happening to me. And I remember looking at my one friend dead in the eye, and I was like, if you ever make more than me, you will tell me. And he was like, damn straight, I'll tell you. I think because he was afraid, and I don't blame him. But I was like, we're friends, and I deserve to know, kind of thing. And I was like, I will 100% tell you for sure.
I think it's tough too, because you like question yourself a lot when that happens. Like, you have to literally, I mean, I'm not saying that this is necessarily what Maria did, but like, you almost feel like you have to line up your resumes and be like, is this because I'm a woman, or is this because like I'm missing maybe this one part that you have that I don't, or something like that. Like, there's so much mental gymnastics there of like, am I just being ridiculous, or is this an actual discrimination? And then on top of it, there's so much there's this culture constructed to make people not want to ask about salary or feel ashamed. Either you feel a sense of shame about what you're making, or you're afraid that like you're gonna stir up trouble or something is gonna happen. Because like at the end of the day, I need a fucking job. Like, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to start shit because I don't want to get fired so I can afford to live. But at the same time, that culture makes it so it is harder for workers as a whole, but especially workers who are systematically underpaid, to reach the same pay power as those in more privileged positions.
I don't give a shit what your job says. Talk about your salaries, because it's bullshit.
Yeah,
they say not to talk about it so that you don't end up negotiating for yourself.
Oh yeah, 100%.
There are actually comments about that. There's one that says, during training, a lot of jobs were adamant about us not speaking about salaries, pay between coworkers. Literally, this whole time I've been sitting here just wanting to be like, can we please normalize discussing your salary with other people that you work with? Because why does it matter? Like, why is it so like bad to talk about it? What is it doing to you? Like, you stand to only benefit by talking to your other employees about what they're making doing the same shit you're doing. So obviously the company's like, don't do it, because they don't want to pay you guys the same, because they probably lowballed you. They probably lowballed the person who was desperately looking for a job, and they gave them the lowest end of whatever range that they say they pay. And also, why are the ranges so big? Like, I've literally seen jobs that are like, we'll pay you anywhere from 40 to 80,000. I'm like, what? That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. If you're willing to pay the 80,000 with all of the qualifications that this person is supposed to have, why isn't that just what you post the salary as? I don't understand the range. Like, that makes no sense. If you're hiring someone, you should be willing to hire them at the most that you are willing to pay.
Agreed. When I asked for my first raise, I did it because I was so pissed that my coworkers were making more than me. Because I had just graduated and I was really worried that, so I didn't negotiate when I first accepted my first job. But the skills that you've picked up in college are enough to negotiate for yourself. And that's like my big tidbit there. Always negotiate. Negotiate anything. You can negotiate your rent. You can negotiate your salaries. You can literally negotiate anything. And if you don't know how to negotiate, LinkedIn Learning that shit. I love their videos. You can learn a lot on the internet. Do we want to move into our next topic of, so less Women's History Month, more feminism, which I kind of feel like we're already in. But I would really like to talk about the phrase feminazis, especially since I just learned on another podcast that, and everyone else probably knows this, I bet this is old news, but I didn't know that Rush Limbaugh actually came up with the term feminazis. I was not aware of that.
I didn't know
he came up with that
from him
either.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad that this is news for everyone. So he came up with that that phrase on his radio show, just because his whole radio show is basically just like to be inflammatory.
To be a total piece of shit. Call it what it is. To be a piece of shit.
True.
So I do not agree with the term feminazi, obviously, if you guys haven't picked up on that. But I'm always trying to like drive the point home that like feminism like is equality. And I feel like since that the term feminazi came out, that's so hard to bring it back to. And everyone's just always looking to fight you on it. And it's like, why? Why do you want to fight me on being equal with someone else? Like, if you want a 1950s housewife, that's going to be really hard to find. And you just might as well just give up on that dream now.
I agree in that feminism is equality. I think a lot of people don't seem to, like, I see this also from other women, of feminism not being seen as largely the ability to choose. Like, to me, feminism is the ability for me to make a decision. Unfortunately, economic-wise, this isn't a possibility, but let's say we lived in a perfect world, and it was, like, I should be able to choose if I want to stay at home and be a full-time mom and, like, caregiver. Or I should be able to choose if I want to pursue a career and do these other things. Like, rather than being boxed into something. Like, I think that is a huge point of feminism for me. And the flip side of it, too, is that if I want to pursue a career, my husband should be able to also stay home and take care of the kids if that's what he wants as well. Like, it just overall opens up opportunity for not just women, but for, like, everybody across the board to pursue something that doesn't work when you have a gender binary social structure of how things are supposed to operate based on that gender.
So my husband is very open about wanting to be a stay-at-home dad. Matt's ready for it. Matt was like, you need to start making more money so I can be a stay-at-home dad, which honestly works for our dynamic because I have anxiety and get really restless, so I can't sit still for too long, and I don't think I could be a stay-at-home mom. But that was also really clear before we got married, too, where I was like, I have zero desire to be a stay-at-home mom. And he was like, I have every desire to be a stay-at-home dad.
I would like to say that, like, if you're a woman who knocks other women for wanting to be a stay-at-home mom, you're not a feminist. Because we're supposed to be, you know, like, uplifting each other, and maybe that's not your hustle. That's fine. That's fine. But, like, if that's something that makes, like, somebody else happy and that's what they want to do, then that's what they want to do. And they're going to make it work for them. That's fine. And just to, like, comment on the term feminazi, definitely do not like that term either. But, like, I do think that it needs to be acknowledged that there are extremes that make people say that term. I'm not saying I'm okay with the term in any way, but in any sort of movement, there are people who take things a little bit too far. And like, that's where things get kind of scary, you know, like, I don't know. No, we should not be using that term, but also like as a feminist, it's not okay to be like, men should die and we should get rid of them and we need to figure out a way to reproduce without them because they need to leave this planet forever, because that's fucking insane.
One term I do like is TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminism. I think that's a fitting one. I think, like, I agree. There's a lot of radical points of view, and some of it I think comes from hurt. Like, I think that when you realize that you've been treated a certain way based on these certain things, or like historically, you know, people like you have not had the same opportunities, there's a lot of hurt there. There's a lot of anger there, and I think a lot of that comes from that. Like, and what I don't believe a single person that is a radical feminist says like fuck all men, like get rid of them all, seriously believes that that's a viable option. Like we're not in reality anymore when we're at that point. And so it sounds like it comes a lot more from like an emotional I'm upset place than it does from like we're trying to actually solve something here.
Yes.
But like one thing I do want to acknowledge is modern feminism has been wrapped up a lot, and this is what this really irks me, so I'm just gonna get it out there. Modern feminism has been wrapped up in capitalism, like extremely wrapped up. Every time I see a like feminism rules t-shirt, I want to pull my hair out, because at the same time most of these are made in like sweatshops overseas where over 80% of the workers there are women. And like so capitalism really just like exploits women overseas, and then you see women in the West using feminism to like reach their own goals without actually like considering the ramifications of like what they're buying and what they're doing and how that impacts women in other parts of the world. It drives me insane.
And like you can't be perfect all the time with like what you're buying and what you're doing, but like I think if your intention is on the right side of things, like you can work towards being, I guess, good feminist. I don't really know. And I kind of want to go back to my like 1950s housewife comment. If that's your jam and that's what you want to do, go for it. What bothers me is when that's what dudes expect. Like that, like what bothers me is like when you're dating a guy and he's like, well, I expect my future wife to stay home with the kids and like make sure dinner's ready at 5:30 every day. Like, not me.
What a disgusting sound.
Oh yeah, it is, because that's a disgusting narrative, and I don't think that you should lead with that on a first date. If that's what you're going for, and you find a woman who's like, I do want to do that, like that's I want to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's what I want to do. 100% cool, but don't lead with that being the criteria for the woman that you marry, kind of thing. Like that has to be a mutual.
You have
decision.
to lead with that. You have to lead with that, because if he says that, you know he's got to go immediately.
True. Okay, all guys, lead with what you really want so women can run away. Yeah.
I think of the whole like stay-at-home thing, but then I think about like no one makes enough money to be a stay-at-home person anymore. Like people have, like both partners have to work to sustain a normal lifestyle nowadays. And I think like, I always think about like, oh, maybe I'd like to be a stay-at-home mom. Like that'll be nice to not have to like balance all of the juggling like between kids and work and whatever. But then I think about like, well, how am I going to pay my kids college, or like how am I going to afford a normal lifestyle with kids with only one salary, because no one makes enough money like nowadays to sustain a family of 4 just on one salary. Like it just doesn't exist anymore, I feel like. So I get kind of conflicted with that, because I'm like, it's not even realistic anymore.
Afraid to put all my eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Like that. Because I'm like, well, what if your partner like loses their job?
Yeah.
And then you've been out of the workforce for X amount of years. Like, I think being a stay-at-home mom scares me. And I think that that's why I've never really entertained the idea, because I'm like, oh, nope, I see too many cons in that pro cons list.
If your like partner, husband, wife, whatever, they ask you to be a stay-at-home mom, I really think there needs to be some terms in like a prenup or something that say like you are not going to be fucked if for some reason the marriage doesn't work out. Because if you ask me to stay home and then you leave me and I get nothing, and I haven't worked for 12 years on site, I'm going to beat your ass.
Okay, but that's so accurate. I was also I'm on mom TikTok. I'm not a mom, so I don't really know why I have fallen into mom TikTok.
I think we all kind of know why, but...
Yeah, we do all know why, but
pretend.
We're not. I totally know why I'm there. But I saw this one video, and she was like, I have this agreement with my partner that if I'm staying home with the kids, I get a salary from him, and it covers like being a housekeeper, being almost like a nanny, and like all of like what you would pay someone else to do, her husband pays her to do. So like he pays like for like a housekeeper that's really just his wife, pays for a nanny, which is really just his wife and like the kid's mother. But like then she's still making her own money, taking care of their family. So she's not totally getting screwed over, but like he just like deposits it into her account. Not that I'm saying that that's a good idea. That's just something that I saw on the internet that I wanted to share with everyone.
I was wondering how that worked out. I was like, is he giving her an actual paycheck, or is she just getting like unlimited access to his bank account? Like,
is it taxed?
It's not. From what I understood, it was not taxed. It sounded like it was. He got paid, direct deposited into her account after that kind of thing. That way, like she still had ownership of her funds. So like that would basically be like her job. I just found it interesting.
I don't know how I would feel about that.
Yeah,
then I feel like my husband
is
paying me to do things that I'm doing because I'm with him and we're together and I love him type of thing. Like we chose to have a house together. We chose to have kids together. Like, I don't know. I would feel conflicted about that.
I think it was more in the like recognizing that shouldn't be like unpaid labor, because a lot of that is unpaid labor that it always falls on women to do. Like there's been, I think like out of everyone who has left the workforce during COVID-19, I think it's like 70% of that have been women that have left the workforce to take care of their kids, their house. So I think the point was that she was like, if I'm doing all this unpaid labor, it's not going to be unpaid because you're not going to be like the sole gatekeeper of our funds. And then you still have a little bit of financial flexibility for yourself because you don't have to like check in every time you're in the bank account. So I think they had like a joint bank account and then there's separate bank accounts. But also that man must be like a big baller to be able to afford that too.
One thing that my mom says, and I think it's definitely like, I don't know if it's just Brazilian culture or just her generation, but growing up, what she would always say, because my parents have a joint bank account, and then my mom has her own bank account, like separate one, because she works just part-time as a chef during like the season down where they live. And she always, growing up, she would tell my dad in front of us, she would say, your money is our money, but my money is my money. So like my dad wouldn't get access to the money she made off of her work, but the money that my dad was bringing into their joint bank account, like she had unlimited access to. And I just laugh thinking that, because like nowadays, like I said, everything's so expensive. So I don't feel like that would really work out too well in a relationship nowadays, like a marriage. But I always thought that was interesting, because he literally could not use her money if he wanted to, but she would just like go and spend whatever money she wanted in their joint bank account.
Your girl Marceline, though, she had a good point, or like a good comment. It says, so much toxicity surrounding the hashtag girl boss mentality too. Do y'all remember when that book and Netflix original came out? I don't remember the book or Netflix original, but for me, when I see hashtag girl boss, my first thought is pyramid scheme, and that's why I hate it. Especially because pyramid schemes target women. Majority of people that get caught in that are women, or should I say MLMs, multi-level marketing. If you don't know what that is, let's give a few lists. doTERRA, those ugly leggings. Pure Romance.
What is
What
it
else?
like?
A bunch of
Herbalife.
is
Mary
it
Kay.
MAC or something?
No, MAC is a
that's
normal
it.
one.
Mary Kay. Mary Kay.
Mary
Mac's
Kay.
a real brand.
Avon.
Mac's okay.
There's so many.
Cutco.
A lot of
Knives.
weight loss teas, a lot of dietary pills, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
my first
It's all
thought when I hear
nonsense.
girl boss. And I listened to this podcast. It's called The Dream. It's about a girl who just, like, a lot of her family gets caught up in these MLMs. And the perspective of the narrator, she's a bit condescending. I kind of don't like how condescending she is towards these women and the overall, like, situation they're in. But she does a really good job at exploring how they work and how predatory they are towards women, especially with low socioeconomic backgrounds or not a lot of education. And it's, every time I see Girl Boss now after that, I just cringe. They're almost like cults too, because they really, what is the word? When you push everybody away from you, I'm blanking on the word right now. But like, it causes people caught up in them, and in this case, the women that we're talking about specifically, to like push everybody away because they're trying to bring everybody else into their like terrible financial decision that's going to leave them bankrupt or in debt. And like they're trying to commodify suddenly their relationship with literally everybody around them, trying to get them to buy their ugly leggings for the sake of like them not going under too. And God, it's so much like a cult.
I find cults very fascinating. I saw this TikTok about this girl who ended up in a yoga cult where they were like worshiping this dude. Dude, it was wild. I was like, what the fuck? Because they make you feel good. They make you think you're like on top of the world.
Is it Bikram yoga?
No, it wasn't Bikram. It was something else. I was talking to my
because that dude is messed up.
I haven't watched that yet because I'm afraid. Because I love to go to yoga, but I was like, man, that's a lot for me. But it was called something else, and I was just like, what the fuck? But honestly, all major religions started as a cult too. Like Christianity at one point was a cult. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's interesting. But I like to learn about religion from an academic's point of view. So COVID-19, it's been a whole year.
Oh, jeez.
I will personally say that this is the first year that I like am jonesing for summer because like I miss being able to like be outside and like enjoy the weather when it's not fucking freezing. Mm-hmm. So I live somewhere that has all four seasons and it's freaking cold. And I really miss being able to like go for hikes and like be outside where I'm not in pain. Like the air hurts here right now. And I feel like
it's really cool.
It's just worse because I'm like in the house all the time and I have like a stronger desire to get out. And it's taken a really long time to warm up over here. But I think I spent more time outside last summer because I had more time. Like I didn't have as many obligations because everything was canceled. So like I could go outside a lot more and go hiking a lot more. Whereas then it got cold and I was like, okay, like now I'm chilling in the house and that's it.
Does it feel like it's been a year to you? Because when I look back, I think it partially had to do with the fact that I went back into the office for the first time in a year on Friday. So it felt like it was just frozen in time. Like everything was still the same when I went back. It's like I can't believe it's been a year. But then I look back and like, wow, it has been a rough year. Like it's been so hard at the same time, but it went by kind of fast. I don't know. It's like this weird feeling.
I don't know why.
Like I aged 20 years in 1 year. This year has felt like forever to me.
Yeah.
It's like almost funny to me. Like, okay, this sounds fucked up already.
All right.
Like, I don't think the pandemic is funny. But like also I laugh at trauma. So
this is my coping mechanism.
Like, I'm sitting here just like we went on a 2-week lockdown a year ago. Yeah. Even now, everything's like not really back to normal.
Well, I remember going out
Okay,
for St.
holy
Patrick's Day.
shit.
Oh my god. Like, it's just, like, it's not funny. Like, it's not funny. But
Sure.
it's just been so terrible.
You look like you're gonna cry a little bit. Oh my god.
I'm crying laughing right now. I think this just might be, like, all of the emotional distress just coming out at once. Because, like, this time last year, I was so scared. Like, I was legitimately so scared, and nobody, like, knew the extent of what was going to happen and the way that the media portrayed it. They're like, you're going to drop dead in the streets if you get this. And, like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's been a long year. And, like, also, when everything started, my boyfriend at that time, he was helping with some of the contact tracing, and he would talk to families, and they're like, oh, we're trying to get a hold of this person, and they'd be like, this person died of COVID. So I'm seeing that, and I'm stuck in a small house with my boyfriend and his mom because we moved in with her to help her out with, like, groceries and anything that required going out in public because she has asthma and, like, health issues, and she didn't want to be doing that stuff for herself. So we were doing all of that for her. And I was living in such fear, and, like, I feel better that I'm not as scared as I was anymore, but, like, just thinking back to that time is so
It's terrifying. I think it's just traumatizing. So like it was really bad. Like I was just thinking as Toby was saying this right now, like trying to remember the first time. I don't know if any of you guys have already, but like the first time I actually went and ate at a restaurant again after the first time since COVID started. And I think the first time when I actually sat down at a restaurant to eat was like October or November. Like it was not that long ago. So I basically spent that like period of like 6 months just going to the grocery store. That's the only reason I would leave my house. I wouldn't do anything else. And everyone was living in just fear of, if I get this, am I going to die? Like, what is going to happen to me? Because no one knew what was going on. It was just, it's traumatizing to look back at having to go through all of that.
I think for me, the thing that's really stuck, and now that's been a year, we're not even through it, but I'm vaccinated now, so my fear level of catching it has gone down. My fear of sharing it, though, or like spreading it, is still very much real, because even if you're vaccinated, you can still carry the virus. Your viral load is much lower. So if you were to give it to somebody else, they likely wouldn't get as sick as if they got from somebody who was not vaccinated, or they're less likely to get sick, but I am still able to share it. And like I wasn't really concerned with my own safety as I have been with others, but also I've kind of like developed this, it's not like a fear of human bodies, but my like perspective of the human body has been like just warped now, where I look at people and I'm like, oh my god, what if you're the one that has it? Like you touched a thing, and now I'm gonna touch it, and now we're all gonna get sick, and this is a problem. Or like little kids kind of scare me now because they can be nonsense mad. They like, I remember walking downtown at one point where shops weren't open, but it was pretty wide open, and or like restaurants, they could do the outdoor dining but not indoor, and I just saw kids out there like touching their face and their mask and chewing with their mouth open, and I had never like looked at a child with such fear and been like, you could be sick and nobody would know because you won't have symptoms, but you're gross and you're a little germ thing, and like that has stuck with me, and I don't know how to process or get that out of, like, when I look at people, that's how I see people now.
Think about the shit that we used to do, and I'm like, that's fucking disgusting. Like, I used to leave places and not sanitize my hands immediately, and I'm disgusted with myself. Or, like, I think about how many times, like, I remember one distinct time just, like, drinking out of other people's drinks.
Yep.
Like, dropping my phone on the bathroom floor and just picking it up. Little swish on the jeans and keep going. Disgusting. I would never do that now.
Like, all of the handles of alcohol we would pass around at a frat party and just chug straight from the handle. Like, could never do that ever again.
Beer bongs, when did those ever get cleaned? Like, when did you see
Slap the
someone
bag?
clean a beer bong?
Never seen anyone clean a beer bong. I didn't like, and all it is hot water and a little soap, little swish through the funnel. That's all you got to do. It's not even hard. But I feel like beer bongs with grit are the ones that get you the most fucked up. And by grit, I mean old ass alcohol just chilling in that fucking tube. And like, we just willingly ingested it. That's probably why none of us have gotten COVID. Because we live a dirty ass life.
This immune system is strong as shit.
Yeah, public school and college will give you an immune system like no other.
Have you guys seen those memes online where it's like, if you did blank, you don't need to worry about what's in the COVID vaccine, like, type of thing? Like, if you drink the jungle juice at a frat party, you don't need to worry about what's in the COVID vaccine. Like, everywhere.
But Z Sweezy, I do not remember COVID being censored on YouTube. I have zero idea what you're talking about. So if you'd like to share more in the chat. But I was also a little disconnected. I feel like I really fell into the like banana baking, Tiger King watching, Animal Crossing playing side of pandemic. Yeah. I mean, saw the internet and the news because it was a lot for me.
I definitely remember hearing about like censorship and things that were going on when COVID first started, because that's just like something that Sean talked about a lot. And if it wasn't like censorship, it was also just really downplaying what was going on. And I also remember at some point they were just like, oh, it's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to be a big deal. But then right before a bunch of lockdown happened, a bunch of lawmakers started buying up VPN stock. So like, it's kind of suspicious because we're like, it's weird that you said that you didn't think it was that big of a deal, but now you're buying VPN stock, and now we're on lockdown, and VPN stock has just skyrocketed in value. So like, why did you all of a sudden get interested in that?
Insider trading. I don't actually know what that means.
I mean, can we take a moment to recognize, though, the complete failure of our government a year later? Like,
True.
One thing that has given me hope, though, is I was looking at stats of COVID vaccination rates, and something like the U.S. should, within 2021, if we continue at the rate that we're going, everyone would be vaccinated. Meanwhile, like, I was looking at Japan's vaccination rate, they would not be done for like 100 years at the rate that they're vaccinating. 200 years, 200 years at the rate that they're vaccinating, which was really mind-blowing to me because Japan has a pretty solid healthcare system. So I was like, what the fuck?
And a much smaller population too.
Yeah.
I'm also genuinely curious of how much of the US population is going to get vaccinated, because not just because of like anti-vaxxers and stuff like that, because that's a big group that's definitely not going to do it. But then there's also a lot of distrust of the vaccines because they are so new. And like, if you know anything about like advancements in medicine, they're always just like, it takes years to make a vaccine. It takes years to know like the efficacy and the safety. And that's scaring a lot of people. Like that's a kind of like a barrier that they're going to have to get past if they actually expect to vaccinate every single person, because there's a lot of people that aren't going to do it because they're scared.
Yeah.
I want to go to your girl Marceline's comment about an increase in anxiety and depression and like adjustments that people have made. I will 100% back that up, because I think that I've always had anxiety, but it definitely got worse during the pandemic because I felt like I could never disconnect from anything because everything was virtual, and it was like 9 to 5 being virtual, and then any volunteer work was virtual, and I was like, I just can't stare at a screen anymore. And now therapy is also virtual, so I literally like, I feel like we're in a Black Mirror episode where I can't get away from my computer. Like I am one with my laptop and the internet, and it's freaky. It's kind of scary. And it's like, what is this new normal going to look like?
Yeah. My parents were the type to, because I moved down to my parents' house when COVID started. And they were the type to have the TV on CNN the entire day. So I would be at home and CNN was on the TV, and that would be all I was hearing all day, which I think contributed to my anxiety levels because they're just like going crazy, freaking out about what's happening. And then I also feel like I experienced the slightly like depression, no motivation type of side of it too, because I felt so stuck. And I know everyone was going through the same thing I was, but I was like, my life literally has stopped. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm stuck at my parents' house. Like, I don't see growth for myself happening right now. Like, I was really upset about that, even though I knew that everyone else in the world was like in the same position that I was in. It was just a very weird like mindset to be in. It was,
I felt very similar to you too, Maria, because I think that I'm very next step driven. Like everything in my life, I'm like looking for the next step, and there's pros and cons to that. But there was no next steps during COVID, or no smart next steps.
Yeah.
And that's what, or like steps that I wanted to take, because I was like, there were some things that I was like, well, I want to enjoy this like in a non-COVID world.
Yeah.
Like it was really frustrating to like try and get married during 2020. And like we always had a very small, intimate wedding plan, but like our reception we had to push back. And then we still kind of like run the risk of the place that we're having it at, like they could shut down because of the pandemic and we'd be out all of our money. And then we like at that point, it's like, what's the point of having a full reception? But like the people who had these big weddings planned, like it's a lot. That's a lot of things that change. Or like people who had babies and like you didn't get a chance to like have a big baby shower or like something like that. Like all those experiences, I feel like we're like kind of taken away from everyone, which sucks too.
I want to comment on that. Like, I know that sometimes like it may seem kind of like, I don't know, like shallow to be like, this event got ruined because of the pandemic, but like that is okay to feel that way. Like, you are losing the simple joys in life because of that, and it's okay to be upset about that because there are some people who had it worse than all of us. But like that doesn't invalidate your feelings of being upset about things that were canceled, things that had to be rescheduled because you had nothing to really like pick you up in a really difficult time this year. And then one more thing that I wanted to say about like everything that happened with COVID. For those of you that live with your significant other, I don't know if this is something that like you guys may have experienced, but I know it's something that we experienced where being like working from home together all the time and then only seeing each other, it brought out some ugly sides of us. Like, I don't know if you guys were fighting the way that we were fighting, but we were losing our fucking minds when everything started. And at some point, I was like, I'm going to kill this man. I'm going to kill this man.
Well, okay, prior to the podcast starting, I said the exact same thing because my husband wouldn't answer the phone and I couldn't get Discord to work. And then they're like, remember last week when you said how much you loved him and you die without him? And I was like, yeah, right. He's going to be the death of me. But I felt the exact same way. And then I read this study that women who lived with their significant others, the amount of times that they would have sex a week dropped from like 3 to 4 down to like 0 to 1, because you're just with that person 24/7, that you have like no desire to like be naked with them, which I thought was just very interesting. But then I saw a lot of COVID babies, so I also wonder how accurate that is, because I was like, I know how babies are made.
I would just like to point out that the birth rate is actually dropping in the US, just like in general. It is like dropping quite rapidly, with some states seeing like 7% to like 15% drop in birth rates. I only know this because of newborn screening. So a lot of those like screening programs are kind of low on funding because COVID didn't actually spike the birth rate the way that they expected it to.
So maybe it's just in my world that everyone is having babies, because I feel like everyone is pregnant but me, thank God. I'm afraid. Yeah.
My cousin had a COVID baby.
That's so wild.
Thank you for your cousin's contribution.
She lives in Brazil, so she's not even contributing to the US.
Okay, so we've kind of gotten real sad about all of the negatives during COVID, but like, what's like 2 positives that you guys found during the pandemic? Okay,
Ooh.
Toby, you go first. Because
Okay, Toby, go.
Okay, so my favorite thing that has come out of the pandemic, my first favorite thing is it showed employers that telling people that they can't work from home is total bullshit. So, like, I'm pretty sure that even post-pandemic, I'm still going to be working from home, and that gives me a lot more time in my day and just lets me do more of what I want to do. And it's been a lot easier for me to start working out and like getting healthy because I have more time to do so. Then my second thing that I really, really like because of COVID is that grocery stores now sanitize their carts. And I know they weren't doing that shit ever before. So thank you for that.
I would agree. Okay, Paige, you're next. Because you also had a really excited look on your face.
Okay, first I got a puppy. I really wanted a puppy. Wanted one for a few years. It's a collie. I was super excited. Okay, second one, it let me work on my grad school applications. I've been trying to apply to grad school, or like gearing up for it, since I graduated. And so it let me like sit down and focus and not have to think about work anymore because I got furloughed. And it was like a nice time to do that. The last one is I started streaming because it's something I wanted to do for a really long time. And I guess I just kind of like had the free time and like want to just start something when I couldn't anymore, with like that stuck feeling, and finally just dove right into it. So yeah.
I dig it. Okay, Maria, what's your top things?
So my first one kind of relates to Paige's last one. I started doing a lot more things that I felt like I wouldn't have been able to do if it weren't for quarantine. So I started doing a lot of graphic design and learning how to do that. So I started in July, and now I've been just loving doing that. Also, I feel like it's been more creative things. So like graphic design, I've learned how to make paper. That sounds weird, but like paper making, embroidery, like creative things like that, where I felt like in the lifestyle that I was living before COVID, like I just didn't have time to try new hobbies that I really wanted to. So that was one thing. And then the second thing is kind of mushy, but it allowed me to spend time with my parents that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. Like I never thought that I would ever move back in with my parents and be living with them full time again. Like I thought that was kind of in the past. So it made me just be more grateful for the time that I had with them. And even moving back to where I'm living now, I like cried on the airplane, like knowing that that was the last time I would ever actually be like full-time living with my parents. So I was just grateful for that time I had with them too.
That's so cute. That makes me want to cry. I love that. I would agree with the creative thing. I feel like the pandemic slowed down my life a lot, and I really, really needed that. Like I needed something to stop me and be like, chill, just stop moving. So I feel like I got to be a lot more creative, and then I feel like I got closer to my friends. Like I think that during the pandemic, Toby and I got a lot closer. So I'm really thankful that quarantine brought me closer to Toby, even from a socially distanced space. I guess, is what I'm getting at. And just like everyone, like I feel like I talk to you guys a lot more, and just I feel like I was a little bit more vulnerable with my friends than I normally am. And then that's how they figured out I was weird. So maybe that's not positive.
I don't think I've ever
We already
texted
knew.
Paige. I'm pretty sure I've like texted you more in the past year than I did in the 4 years we were in school together.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm pretty sure that's yeah.
See, so there were some good things that came out of it. And
Yeah.
I'm glad we ended on a high note. So I think we can move it into our and banana bread. A lot of banana and zucchini bread came out of it. I baked a lot. So I think we can move into our Q&A.
Yeah, I can read the first one if you want. This was Lowlife, who's absent today but still partaking from afar. I feel like a lot of people see feminists as, quote, women should always be right and come out on top to compensate for being suppressed, end quotes. Thoughts? Is it more about equality to men, not, quote, catching up on wrongs, end quote? Can you connect feminism to toxic masculinity? I think we did that a little bit already, but we could elaborate on it too.
I have a comment that I meant to make earlier and then I forgot.
Yeah.
It was when we were talking about how the really extreme feminists who feel like we don't need men. Ultimately, we need men in those conversations, because if there isn't some dude backing you up in your corner that your point is correct, it likely falls flat, because right now they hold the power. And I think they hold a lot less power than they used to.
Yeah.
But men are also important in moving the needle when they are really aligning with the feminism movement. So like, you can't just cut men out of the equation if they're still living on this earth, if that makes sense. Did any of that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think 100%
Yeah.
I got that.
Okay. That's all I had to
And
say.
to just
I don't
kind
remember
of
the
go off
question.
of the question, where I think she said something about catching up on wrongs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think it's about catching up on wrongs. Like, it's not like we want you to, like, go back in time and be like, you owe us all of this. I feel like, at least in my personal opinion, I just don't want it to be an issue from here on out. Like, it shouldn't matter from here on out. Like, you can't change the past, but you can make strides to better the future, and that's pretty much what I want out of like a feminist movement.
It's not just like, I feel like the feminism movement gets just, people think that it's really just women wanting to make things better for women, but I think it's wanting to make things better for everyone, not just for women. So one thing that I get baffled by every time is maternity leave versus paternity leave. Like, my company thankfully has paternity leave, but I think it's only 2 weeks, and then maternity leave is like 12 weeks or something like that. But I'm thinking, like, shouldn't men have bigger leaves too, because like they also have to adjust to this lifestyle too. It's not just the mother. So it's just making it equal for everyone. So that is just like one example where it would be making things better for men versus what everyone thinks is always just only making things better for women.
There's so much research that says that when women are uplifted and women are put in positions of power, and then men are given the same things that women are, like if everyone is given the same things, like things just skyrocket forward. I feel like a lot of the apprehension on the feminist movement is that people are afraid that they won't have what they have right now anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's scientifically proven that like that will shoot you forward exponentially. Yeah. And I guess like, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like, whatever, we'll just try it. We'll just like see what happens. And that's kind of like my entire life.
Thank you. What is the next question?
Okay, this one I just want to give like a trigger warning to. It has to do with sexual assault. So I imagine it's going to actually take up a large chunk of the rest of the episode. But I just wanted to like put that out there for anybody that is listening before we jump into it. So this is Neon Addie. So there's been multiple cases of women lying, of men raping them. Should the women face consequences of the same value as the innocent male? Example, the male did 2 years when he was innocent. Should the female face consequences for their actions? There was a case recently where a woman had dreamt that the guy raped her and he faced 28 years. Not the same consequences, but should they get some sort of punishment, community service, or whatever? So, real quick, I just want to say I think the case of the woman dreaming it is an outlier. I don't really think it has a strong place in this particular conversation. Because that is such a miscarriage of justice and like confusion and like all. I just think it's such a weird case that I don't think it counts as, or like should count in a conversation of women lying about their assault or in assault. So I'm just gonna like ignore that part of it, but I think it's a little too gray to be like, well, you got 2 years, so now she gets 2 years, or like, I think that is far too gray. And at the same time, if a woman does lie and somebody who is innocent has to carry out a prison sentence over something they did not do, the person who lied about it getting jail time kind of does nothing for the person who lost years of their life. Like, how is it going to make up for the money that they did not make in that time period, the relationships that they lost in that time period, like all of these things, just to say like the person had jail time over it? Like, I would much rather see the person who is falsely accused and imprisoned for something they didn't do be given like a job and money and things to try and just make up for that loss of time in their life that they should have not lost in the first place.
Yeah, I don't think in that situation, like, an eye for an eye always makes sense. I think it's a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should go to jail. Because...
No, I'm not saying I don't think there should be jail time. I just think in the case, like, if that's all that happens, I don't think that solves anything for the person who, yeah.
Yes, I agree with you.
All. I'm saying both. They should get the money. They should be set up with the job. They should get like a lot of assistance to basically get them back on their feet. But also the person who lied about it should go to jail, because that's falsifying a police report, which is a crime. And also, you ruin someone's life. You ruin someone's life, because in this case, you're in this specific example, this hypothetical example, it's 2 years. But what if it was 15? What if they had a child before they were like sent to jail for a crime they never committed? They're missing out on so many parts of their life because you wanted to lie about something. And also, this is really upsetting to me because invalidating real victims. Mm-hmm. And then they're just going to be like, well, there's 2% of women that lie about their cases. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter if there's 2%, because the other 98% aren't lying. So don't use this small group of people to invalidate the rest of these women. And that's really upsetting to me. So yeah, maybe an eye for an eye isn't the best thing in the world, but I'm sorry, I'm a Cancer and I like revenge. So I think you need to suffer the way that you have caused people to suffer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too that in cases where those women are lying, I also wonder what happened that's making you lie. Mm-hmm. Like, is it covering something else up? I watch a lot of Criminal Minds, SVU, Mindhunter, shit like that. I'm really into crime shows. So maybe I'm always like, oh, there's some kind of like underlying reason, like why someone would do that. And just like digging a little bit deeper, because I wonder if there's just more to that story too.
Yeah, like there's already women that have a like that are assaulted and don't want to share it because of what the process is like. I can't get into the mindset of just like going through that when it didn't happen for no reason, which isn't to justify anything, but I agree that like there should also be like, why is this happening? Did something else happen? Like, what kind of support are you getting in your life? Like, these sorts of things. I think I agree 100% though that like I see this argument pop up so much in conversations of sexual assault on women of like, but such and such lied, or like this person lied, and I hate that is like the go-to. because I have yet to meet a single woman in my life that doesn't at least to some extent experience a very uncomfortable, at the bare minimum line, a very uncomfortable situation with a man that made her feel like she was in danger. I've not met a single.
We talked about that an episode or two ago, like just ending up like ghosting people because they were creepy and you felt unsafe.
Yeah,
like you said that, and I like a flashback to like being in a dorm room, going like, I need to get the fuck out of here, just because it's like, and I feel like you never really know who's going to be a predator until it's too late. For the most part.
I mean,
and like believe your friends too when they say it.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, your friends aren't lying to you about it either.
And I don't know exactly what the number on this statistic is, but isn't it like an overwhelming majority of sexual assaults are by a trusted friend?
Like they're by people you know.
Yeah. When I was just a couple years back, I got tagged in this anonymous Twitter account that just had a single link to like one of those, I think it's like Twitter notes or something, that was recounting a woman's experience with this guy that I actually studied abroad with, and his, like, their whole relationship and everything he had done to her that was abusive, and the assault, and everything. And I didn't know who she was, but like, when I was reading it, I legitimately was like, how could, like, I would never see him doing this. He was so nice and always seemed very respectful. His social media is all like women, like feminism this and like equality this and so on and so forth. So like reading it, my first, and I hate to say it because my first reaction was just disbelief. I was like, I don't know who this person is, but I do know who this guy is. And it took me, like, I had to kind of just sit with it for a while, like, probably, I mean, I hate to say it, but, like, probably just sat with it for a few hours to, like, readjust how I saw this person and remind myself, like, I believe, like, I stand behind women when they come forward, even though I don't know who she is. Like, if she is willing to do this and also let the other women in his life know who he truly is, then like I need to put my money where my mouth is and like back her up on this.
Well, now university campuses have, I've seen a few Twitter accounts where people send in their stories anonymously, and then these people they'll tweet out like so and so in such and such club, or like so and so at such and such university did X, Y, and Z to me, and like they'll post all of their screenshots. And the premise of starting those Twitter accounts at these universities was because their university police departments weren't doing anything. They were like, well, it was at a party. Well, you were drunk. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where the fuck you are. It doesn't matter what you've consumed. It's never okay.
I really hate how foggy the conversation gets when alcohol is involved. And it's like, it's so hard to be like, what can you do to change that, to make it better? Because everything's just so cloudy, but it's just really unfortunate. And I don't know. I wish things could be better in that sense.
So we have 2 questions left. Should we move on to those 2? Okay. These ones are a little more lighthearted. So
awesome.
We're going to end on a good note. This one is HokeyBoy01. What flavor of poisoned Kool-Aid would you prefer if you were in a cult?
So the Kool-Aid's actively poisoning me, right?
Yeah, you're just choosing the flavor of your death, basically.
Green apple.
What the fuck?
I don't know. That just sounds like a good poison flavor.
You want to suffer when you die?
I like green apple Jolly Ranchers.
Raspberry.
Yeah, blue raspberry.
I was going to say blue raspberry.
You're a weirdo, Bray.
I don't know. I like green apple Jolly Ranchers. I feel like if I'm going to get poisoned, I might as well.
What the fuck is blue raspberry? Raspberries are not blue.
Thank you. At least green apples are a real thing.
I was going to say maybe either
the worst type of apple.
Yeah. No, I love green apples.
No, they're terrible. I only use them for baking. Green apples
I don't eat
for apple pie.
Okay, last one. Nan Addie says, thoughts on biting into ice cream?
Criminal. Straight to jail.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question, a follow-up.
Yeah.
What if they're like those, those popsicles where it's like covered in that hard chocolate shell? Like you have to bite into
No,
that.
you suck on it for a really long time and then you bite into it once it's like mushy.
What?
No.
Okay.
No. You just bite the
Sorry.
chocolate
So-
and eat pieces of chocolate off, and then you lick it.
Thank you.
I can't bite
Yes.
into ice cream.
Yes.
It'll kill my teeth.
Oh,
It'll
I
kill
can't
me.
bite into ice cream either. Like, but I'm more of a popsicle person. Like, Matt will buy me like cases of flavor ice, and I'll chief those things. I usually open 4 at a time and just like shove them in the couch next to me. I fucking love popsicles.
The thought of you
Don't look at me
sucking
like
on
that's
the
weird.
chocolate of a popsicle, of
No.
an ice cream cone until it's soft and melts is like disgusting to me.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
Neonets thinks that we have weak ass teeth.
I do have weak ass teeth. I use Sensodyne, y'all. Okay.
I am in
Sensodyne.
shock. You guys really eat all the chocolate off of the popsicle first and then suck on the ice cream?
Well, no, I
Yes.
make my way down.
And it's not
Like,
a popsicle.
I bite like the top.
What is
of the,
it?
Like the chocolate on the ice cream, then I lick, and then I get to the next part, and I eat the chocolate, and then I lick.
Peachy is the only sensible person in this
You
conversation.
guys are weird. You guys are weird.
We're the
I bite
majority.
into it all the way until
We're
it's
the
done.
majority
No.
here.
Okay, but like honestly, vegan ice cream, you really biting into it just isn't. It's not good.
The only ice
I
cream
take
you
it.
should be biting into is an ice cream sandwich.
Thank you.
True.
If you guys want to talk more about biting ice cream and stuff like that, just ask about it.
Oh yeah. Ask us anything. We have a whole Q&A in our Discord.
I would
Conversation,
just
ladies.
like to make an announcement. I'm pregnant. I'm not. But anyways,
Oh
I'm
my
not going to be here next week.
really excited.
Bro, you shouldn't be excited if I ever tell you that because I am in fear. But yeah, I'm not going to be here next week. So yeah, have fun without me, guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
So sad about
Low
it.
Life will be back with us next week.
So next episode, March 14th, 2 p.m., same place, same time.
Pi
We're
Day.
talking- Also Pi Day. Yes, little STEM education in there. Our topics are cancel culture, finding the one, and post-grad dating. And then after that, so the week after, religion, dating apps, friend breakups, the worst. Drop any questions in our Q&A Discord. If you don't know how to use Discord, slide in our DMs on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Comment on our YouTube. Send us an email,
Like
dudeiknowstuff@gmail.com. Leave us a review. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We edit all of this shit down. Stick it on there. Leave a review. Leave a rating. 5 stars only. If it's not 5 stars, don't leave it.
We don't want it.
Nope. 5 stars or bust.
Everybody, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, guys. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.